Favorite poem that we all know, Robert Frost. This is called Stopping in the Woods on a Snowy Evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, and I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. That poem was written early in his career, back in the 20s, and New England was even less developed, probably, more natural. So he tried to evoke a space that he was in to connotate and communicate a feeling he had about things he needed to do and places he needed to go. So it is always a privilege to talk to the congregation. I get several months, since I told Barbara I would do it in September or August, and I get several months to think about it and contemplate it and toss things around. And you get one Sunday to listen to it for an hour and a half of service. So I think I get the better of the bargain because this subject is one is very strong in my mind. So I start with geography, and geography doesn't necessarily communicate itself as a spiritual practice. In fact, you might remember geography, filling out maps of rivers and mountains and state capitals, which we'd ever use again, oceans and continents. So what if coffee comes from Brazil and dairy products from Denmark and there are kangaroos in Australia? So what? That's interesting, it's descriptive. It actually can send people on a travel. The prelude on the road is very evocative of this. It certainly has sent me on the road many years into many different countries and many different experiences. And it's called descriptive geography. And it has its place. I taught my fair share of it. I was a 7th grade geography teacher. And I think I bored a lot of students at times. I tried to cover that up with my personality and make it fun. But I look back on that and I really was more or less teaching descriptive geography. And that is not something I do much anymore. So geography has a very proud history. It goes back to Herodotus, the Greeks. He was the father of history and father of geography. And he described his travels to Egypt and the Eastern Mediterranean. So it's perhaps the oldest science. And its name, it's given it, is very indicative. Geo, the earth, graphy, description of. So it's a description of the earth. But it is much more than that. And I still get an enthused sense when I hear that Netflix has produced a program of Marco Polo. I remember reading about Marco Polo early in my life and traveling with him mentally to the places he traveled. So I'm looking forward to looking at that and reading the stories of Richard Burton, the explorer in Africa who actually disguised himself and went to Mecca, which he would have been killed if he would have been found out. But when it comes to the 17th and 18th centuries, many different sciences came out, and they all took their piece from geography. And it was very big in England, France, and Germany, but it started a slow decline in prestige as geology took the rocks and climatology took the weather and anthropology took people's interaction with each other and ecology talked about how we work with the earth. Botany talks about the plants and zoology, the animals. Economics, our trade and our products going back and forth. Sociology, the science of human interaction. Anthropology and cartography, the science of maps. So everybody took their piece. And it was like, I remember when I went to school in the 50s at Indiana State College, and our department was sort of in a defensive crouch, defining, yes, geography is important, but if you really want to study something, you study climatology, or you study geology, or you study something that has all the facts. And I'm reminded of the story of Pandora, with her box, warning, don't open this box, and she opens it and all the diseases and famines come out of the box, and she closes it fast, and one is trapped inside, and that's hope. And for geography, what is trapped inside is place. Place is very sacred to geography. And that's why maps, and you say geography, people think of maps. And so this place is like a jewel that geography holds very precious. And it's not the place of the other sciences. The other sciences, they may go out collecting herbs in the Amazon. That's a place. They may look at some climatology thing that happened in the Arctic, the Arctic vortex and so on. That's a place, but it's a place as context. It's like, oh yeah, that's our defining perimeter of what we study, but it's not central. And geography, the central demanding factor is place. And if it's done right in today's world, we really need to know, for example, a current geography of Cuba. We need to know about all the interactions, all the factors that are coming in play with each other, because we are entering that now, again, after 50 years, in a direct, dynamic way. So we need a good geography of these places. We need to understand the geography of China and all its dynamics. But my interest in geography at this point, and it's interesting that the people that did the calendar put Buddha on the cover, because this is probably the least Buddhist talk I've given, but Buddha is there, and he certainly has a place to play. This whole thing with geography, I had put it away long since, stopped teaching geography, but I met a person at a party about a year and a half ago, and you always ask, well, what do you do, and so on. He was just finishing up his PhD in geography. And I said, oh, geography, yeah, I remember. I used to teach that stuff. And we had a long talk. And it really, like, your mind is this very complex mechanism, and it has rooms and doors to those rooms that you haven't used for a long time. And it was like unlocking a door and rediscovering the passions, the defense of geography. We're important, and so on. I learned in college, and I did a master's degree with geography as a major. So it reopened that, and it led me to a book I bought, The Revenge of Geography, which was about, the title actually attracted me. As soon as I saw the title in the New York Times, and I have to have it, because that was what the spirit was that we learned. I mean, we have to get back as an important science. And that was, that title summed it up, Revenge of Geography. And it was about geopolitics and our theories on how nations interact with each other. So what is this place? What is this place? How does it play out? And since I bought the book, and my interest has grown, and that's what led to Barbara said, there's these open dates, and she offers it to all the people who speak here. And I was thinking, well, I could do something Buddhist, but what can I do that's a little different? And my interest in geography had been revived, and I felt that this is worthy of some exploration. So the question is, and that in my write-up at the beginning, the reading I read, we do stand in the universe in a certain place. We do stand in the relationship to time in that universe, from 13, 14 billion years ago to now. We do stand in a physical place that helps to define us, and we define it. And so how do you relate to your place, your location? How do you relate to things? Are they just a context? Oh yeah, there's a nice garden. There's that old tree. Yeah, that old tree is really nice. It's been here a long time. Or that tree over there, we planted that when my son was born, and now it's a big tree. And it's all context related to our own drama, our own sense of drama. And it reminds me of the whole study of language, where scientists are now starting to say, dolphins talk. They actually talk to each other. They have a language. Elephants communicate with each other. Whales communicate with each other, and the whale songs. So we are finally maybe acknowledging that there's other creatures that live on this planet than us. And they come in contact with us in various ways. And these ways are really very intimate to where we live. Because where we live is the way we watch the universe. We are living in a spot, this area here, the church, or your own property, or even an apartment, you have surrounding areas. These areas define us. And are we intimate with them? What can we explore about them that goes beyond just a backdrop, a context that we operate within? And I recently had an experience that was very simple but very significant. A couple weeks ago, I bought an avocado. I was going to use it in a salad, and I cut it, and it was very ripe, and the seed was there, and I was going to just I usually just throw the seed out. And I thought, well, why don't I grow this seed? So I happened to be a member of the Arbor Society, and they had sent me a hourglass vase where you can put a bulb in the top and keep the water high enough. And they sent me 2 hyacinth bulbs, which I didn't want to do that with. But I put the avocado in that spot, and I've kept it watered. So what begins with just a throwaway seed, that goes in the garbage. What began with that actually moved into a caring relationship. And it was in the sunny window, so the water would evaporate. And so I'd have to keep it watered. I'd have to be careful, eat every couple days, put some more water in. Finally, a little bump comes out of the bottom, a little white bump, and that becomes a root. And finally, this last week, a shoot comes up, and the seed split, and the shoot comes up. And this has been very intimate relationship with this plant. The root system is spread all over the glass, and I expect to go back and find a leaf on the shoot. So what happened in that, from going from context, throwaway context? Oh yeah, I don't care about that. I care about the salad. I care about eating the avocado. How do you go from that to this intimate relationship with life, with actual life? And it seemed to be a whole example or a connection with how we treat our environment. And it's not, I don't want to get into the environmental, there's a lot of issues there, but what I want to get into or suggest is that we have the opportunity to go from context and backdrop to an intimate, living, dynamic relationship with place. And I think of another example is a tree. A tree doesn't talk. It doesn't talk in language that we use. But it does exist as a growing life force. It has reaction to the weather. It has reaction to drought. It reacts to other trees shading it. It provides homes for birds. So it's part of the bird's environment. Can we look at a tree in our property and say, I want a personal, intimate relationship with that tree? Now, that sounds a little odd because, hey, we're human beings and we communicate and we talk. But until this gets into the Buddhist part of the talk. Buddhist concerns are very concerned about the ego and your ego attachments to the past, the future, your angers, all your ego states. If you control your ego or train it and make it more permeable, make this more of a non-self experience, then you're able to reach out to other species, even to rocks. The rocks have a stoniness to them, the suchness of rocks. And rocks are, in their own way, very majestic things. They are compounded interactions of electrons, energy that comes across as a rock. So it's not like a tree, it's like a rock. But you can also, a little bit harder to establish a personal relationship with a rock, I agree. But so we probably should stick with trees and birds and plants and animals and so on. A bird, we put seeds out for birds. We have bird houses. And these things provide shelter, but we are actually part of the bird's support system. And if you start looking at it that way, that I'm not the important thing, the bird is important. And how do I support that bird? How do I become a dependable part of its system? So you can see this starts moving the line from me, ego, 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 to at times I'm part of the bird's system. At times I'm responsible for the tree. And if I cut the tree down, I should at least, make a personal statement of separation that it's going to experience. So the importance of places is not just, I'm standing here and that's where I live. It's no, that is your living, dynamic relationship to the universe. And so it's a matter of how you look at the things around you, around your house, around your community, around your nation. I mean, it can reach out to the whole world. But the intimate part is your house, where you live, your neighborhood, that environment. So where we live and stand in that place is a particular viewpoint of the universe. That if you want spiritual development, I think it almost has to include a sense of spiritual connection with the places, with the things around you, with the animals, with the plants. This process can be difficult, but I ran across the word in my research on this, and I'm going to be careful how I pronounce it. Defamiliarization. So we become familiar with it becomes habit. It's another word there is habituation. This devours work, clothes, furniture, one's wife or partner, fears of war. This habit, you become so familiar with things, fine. And so becoming intimate with what's around you in your place, in your property, in your neighborhood, in your community, really counters this familiarization, that, oh yeah, I've been there, done that. It starts making everything very new, very exciting, very fresh. And often in our lives, that's what we want. We search for a freshness, a newness. And we can very easily sink into this habit, familiar, it's all the same, where it's actually all changing moment to moment and certainly season to season. I have a friend, not a close friend, he's a person I knew in Thailand who's also a Buddhist, and he goes a lot to the Buddhist sites in India and Nepal. He travels there, and he continually goes there. I mean, I was there in Thailand 5 years, and there wasn't a year that went by that he hadn't been to Nepal or India, Ceylon, Sri Lanka. And he's so un-Buddhist. I mean, in his attitude and his way of working with people and his sort of negativeness. And I've been wanting to tell him, I met him in New York. He's here in the States for the holidays, and I met him in New York for lunch. And he was so sort of frantic, sort of agitated, that I didn't have the heart to say, Paul, stop going to India and start really understanding what you're doing with Buddhism. I mean, what's this travelogue thing? I mean, yeah, if you want to see India, fine. But you're not learning more about Buddhism by going to India, to the site where he was born or the site he died. So you really need to look at how you can defamiliarize your environment. And one way is photography. I mean, we all have phones with cameras now. So I mean, take some time once in a while to go out and photograph something on your property, that's in your environment. Maybe you see it in a different light. Maybe in the morning hours it'd be different than the evening sunset. So art is a really nice vehicle for opening up those relationships. So also patience, slowing down, don't rush through things. This really has a role to play. The ego self, although very helpful, is not the permanent separate self, but a made-up story, conditioned to create its own fragile distinctiveness. Then place and what you connect to in place becomes very personal and intimate. There's also the concept of pilgrimage. And you think of, there was an article in the Times about more people are going on pilgrimages. They're not just traveling, they're actually seeking out a site where they can learn something and feel something. So I cut this little quote from pilgrimages that really suggests that you can take a pilgrimage every time you exit your house. It's that feeling of taking control over one's life that most affected the pilgrims I met. So much of religion, as it's been practiced for centuries, has been largely passive. People receive a faith from their parents, they are herded into institutions, they have no role in choosing, they spend much of their spiritual lives sitting inactively in buildings being lectured at from on high, which I'm doing right now. A pilgrimage reverses all of that. At its core, it's a gesture of action. In a world in which more and more things are artificial and ephemeral, a sacred journey gives the pilgrim the chance to experience something both physical and real. And it provides seekers with an opportunity they may never have had to confront their doubts and decide for themselves what they really believe. As appealing as that destination may be, there's only one way to achieve it: get up off your sofa and go. Now, we can't all go to the pilgrimage sites for financial and for family reasons, etc., but we can all go outside and relate to the place we view the universe from. And this can lead into a lot of freshness, a lot of newness. I think of your poetry automatically, and many poets, poetry is the language of spirituality. So, so maybe read more poetry. Emily Dickinson is a good person to read for that sort of insight into the environment. She did some of that. So there's other quotes and there's other things here, but I just want to leave you with the sense of what is potentially out there if you view it differently, if you shift your attention from you and your drama as the center of life to at least appreciating that there are other life forms that you can relate to in a very intimate way, and a very meaningful, moving way. So the opportunity to be moved, to view newness, to view excitement, to view the universe is right at your fingertips all the time. And good luck on your pilgrimages. Thank you.
Don't know whether you've noticed it, but our environment in this building in recent weeks has included a lot of interior neighbors in the form of ladybugs. And one of them apparently was up here helping as Alan was speaking to us. Our closing song is number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Please rise in body or spirit.
For the beauty of the earth,